Hey guys, this is Eliza, and today, as you see on screen, we're going to be reading one of my favorite books, Pride and Prejudice. Fun fact, my parents actually named me after the main character in this book, Elizabeth Bennet, who goes by Eliza. So that's my name, and this is the book that I was named after because my mom and my dad absolutely love this book. Now, if you don't know, the author of Pride and Prejudice is Jane Austen. And Jane Austen was a writer from, here, let's see. Let me just read the subblurb about the author. Jane Austen was born in 1775 in rural Hampshire, the daughter of an affluent village rector who encouraged her in her artistic pursuits. In novels such as Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma, she developed her subtle analysis of contemporary life through depictions of the middle classes in small towns. Her sharp wit and incisive portraits of ordinary people gave her novels enduring popularity. She died in 1817. So, if you know your history, she was born during the American Revolutionary War, and she died in 1817, which was about sorry, I'm just trying to think here. That was about 17 years after the election of Thomas Jefferson. And I'm pretty sure she was fairly young when she died. She was about 40, if my math is correct. And she wrote mainly love stories and as about small town people, as it said. But fun fact, another one for you, she never married. She never had love herself. So that is very interesting to me because she is widely regarded as one of the best, like, romance authors of her generation and in just general. Like, the name Jane Austen is a household name. And if you haven't heard of her before, then you will definitely hear about her more. But yeah, this is one of her more famous books, Pride and Prejudice, and it's about, well, let me just read you the blurb. A tour de force of wit and sparkling dialogue, Pride and Prejudice shows how the headstrong Elizabeth Bennet and the aristocratic Mr. Darcy must have their pride humbled and their prejudices dissolved before they can acknowledge their love for each other. Austen's best-loved novel is an unforgettable story about the inaccuracy of first impressions, the power of reason, and above all the strange dynamics of human relationships and emotions. And so, yeah, I'm going to be reading the first chapter of Pride and Prejudice today because it is an amazing book. And if you're not a book person and you are taking this class for, I don't know, if you're not a book person, then there is an amazing movie. Watch the older movie because the newer movie is, I don't like it as much, but the older like series is very good. And there's also Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is also a book. And if you're into zombie apocalypse horror like that, so I'm going to just start the chapter because we're 3 minutes in and I haven't started yet. So, okay. Chapter 1. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. "My dear Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. "But it is," returned she, "for Miss Long has just been here, and she told me all about it." Mr. Bennet made no answer. "Do you not want to know who has taken it?" cried his wife impatiently. "You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it." This was invitation enough. "Why, my dear, you must know. Miss Long says Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England; that he came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately; that he is to take possession from before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week." "What is his name?" "Bingley." "Is he married or single?" "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4 or 5 thousand a year. What a fine thing for our girls!" How so? How can it affect them? My dear Bennet, replied his wife, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I am thinking his marrying one of them. Is that his design in settling here? Design? Nonsense! How can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes. I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will still be better for you, as you are as handsome as any of them. Mr. Bingley might like you best of the party. My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. In such cases a woman has not often much beauty to think of. But, my dear, you must go and indeed see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighbourhood. It is more than I engage for, I assure you. But consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on that account, for in general you know they visit no newcomers. Indeed you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not. You're over scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you, and I will send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls, though I must throw in a good wording for my little Lizzie. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I am sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humoured as Lydia, but you are always giving her the preference. They have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. They are all silly and ignorant like the other girls, but Lizzie has something more of quickness than her sisters. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves. You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. Ah, you do not know what I suffer! But I hope you will get over it, and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighbourhood. It will be no use to us, if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend upon it, my dear, and with that when there are 20 I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humour, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The busyness of her life was to get her daughters married. Its solace was visiting and news. Okay, that's the end of chapter 1. This is written in, like I said, this was written in like the 1800s, possibly late 1700s, early 1800s. So the language is a little different to what you might read in, say, Harry Potter, like modern fictional books today. But it's still very interesting, and I personally find the characters very witty and funny, and Jane Austen's presentation of the characters and just their emotions and their difference from each other, especially the parallels between the different sisters, I find that very interesting. And sorry to get all analytical with you, but that's just who I am. I am an English teacher's daughter, and I love to read. So, yeah, that's going to be the end for this week, and I hope you read this at some point because it's a really good book and I love it. So, bye!